How to find the key of a song when you're playing in a live setting. This is especially important when you're jamming with friends and you don't want to get left behind because you don't know the key of the song that they are playing. So step number one when trying to figure out the key of a song is to give yourself a chance to hear at least one repetition of the measure of what's being played. And what you want to listen for is where does the chord progression repeat? It's extremely rare that the first chord of the measure is not the key of the song. Of course, there are instances where the first chord of the measure is not the key of the song, for example, a 2-5-1 progression, but 99% of the time, if you're playing with a popular chord progression, then you absolutely are going to be starting with the first chord on the first beat, and that is going to be your key. So if we play something like this, this is a very popular minor chord progression, and the first chord that we used in the sequence was C on the 8th fret. And at a very, very basic level, if you were to stick your finger on the 8th fret and start playing the pentatonic scale, you would be completely fine to jam over that for the rest of time. Of course, it can get much more complex as far as using different types of scales or trying to outline the chord changes, but if you just want to be able to play in the key and have fun, there's absolutely nothing wrong with playing the pentatonic scale on the 8th fret and jamming away over the chord progression. Here's another example of an extremely popular chord progression. We're going to be starting on the 6th fret of the A string, which is going to be an E flat, and we're going to play a major chord progression that looks like this. It repeats right there. So we're going to be in the key of E flat major. So if you wanted to play a major scale on E flat, you could do that and it would work. And if you wanted to play the relative minor to E flat, you would just go down 3 frets. You're going to end up on C, which is the 3rd fret of the A string. And if you remember from earlier, there's also a C on the 8th fret of the E string. So if you want to play that C pentatonic scale, you absolutely can. So what it boils down to is what you're really looking for in many, many cases is that first chord on the first beat, and when does it repeat? If we happen to get a full rotation and it happens to go right back to that first chord, then that's most likely going to be the key that you are in. And I say most likely instead of definitively because of course there are songs that have key changes, there are jazz standards that are absolutely ridiculous and you can't really rely on this. But if you're playing at a very beginner level or even an intermediate level, more often than not, your friends are going to be playing a very, very standard pop progression. Be sure to try that out the next time you're jamming with friends.